Animal behavior is one of the clearest windows into how animals survive, compete, communicate, and reproduce in their environment. When you watch a weaverbird constructing a nest on a branch on the shores of Lake Victoria, or termites in your backyard building a towering mound, you witness powerful behavioral adaptations shaped by physiology, learning, ecology, and deep evolutionary history. In introducing animal behavior and ethology, we will need to understand certain concepts. Behavior refers to any action an organism performs in response to internal or external stimuli and is under the control of the hormonal and nervous systems. Ethology is the scientific study of this behavior, aiming to understand both the immediate triggers and the long-term evolutionary reasons behind these actions. A stimulus may be a sound, a scent, a movement, or even an internal hormonal change, and animals respond with behaviors that help them navigate challenges and opportunities in the environment. Behavioral biologists use four guiding questions while studying behavior. The first two are referred to as proximate cause, asking how the behavior occurs, basically what mechanisms like hormones, neurons, or muscles cause the behavior, and how does the behavior develop across the individual's life. The other two are referred to as ultimate cause, asking why the behavior evolved. How does this behavior help an organism survive or reproduce? And what is the evolutionary history behind it? These four questions allow us to trace every behavioral pattern from the immediate trigger to the deeper adaptive value. Behavior is technically differentiated into two categories, and these categories are innate and learned. Fast forward, we shall look at innate behavior, which refers to genetically encoded responses that appear in an organism without prior learning. These behaviors are built into the nervous system and are expressed reliably across all individuals of the same species. Reflexes represent the simplest form, rapid automatic actions triggered by specific stimuli. A classic example is the goat kid pulling its leg away when it steps into a thorn in a pastoral field. The response is instantaneous because the neurocircuitry is hardwired for protection. Beyond reflexes are orientation behaviors, taxis or directional movements in response to stimuli, for instance, moths flying towards light, which is technically positive phototaxis, or many fish, I can say in Lake Albert, swimming against the current to maintain position, which is positive rheotaxis. Kineses, on the other hand, are non-directional changes in movement. For example, the woodlice increases their movement in dry areas until they reach a humid microhabitat, not because they know direction, but because humidity reduces their movement, an adaptive kinesis that prevents desiccation. More elaborate innate behaviors manifest as fixed action patterns, which are stereotyped sequences that proceed to completion once initiated. A familiar example is the courtship dance of the crowned crane, which is the national bird of Uganda, where a series of jumps, bows, and wing spreads follow a genetically programmed sequence. These behaviors require no practice and are triggered by specific cues known as sign stimuli. Large-scale behaviors such as migration reflect deeply embedded biological timing mechanisms. Wildebeest migration in the Serengeti Mara ecosystem follow predictive patterns guided by rainfall, photoperiod, and internal circadian clocks. Territoriality is also innate in many birds, such as the African robin chat, which sings and displays aggressively to defend the feeding and the nesting sites. Aggressive displays, raised fur, widened stance, vocalizations are innate threat postures seen across mammals from vervet monkeys to lions. Innate patterns also shape social hierarchies, where dominance structures emerge through instinctive recognition of power, strength, or age. Even altruistic behaviors such as dwarf mongooses giving alarm calls that expose themselves to predators make evolutionary sense because they increase the survival of genetically related group members, aligning with kin selection. Learned behaviors, on the other hand, arise from experience and allows animals to adjust to changing environmental conditions. One of the simplest forms is habituation, where repeated exposure to a harmless stimulus results in reduced responsiveness. Birds in a forest eventually stop reacting to the sound of branches snapping just as sea animals ignore constant wave action. This form of learning conserves energy by filtering out irrelevant information. A deeper level of learning involves forming associations. In associative learning, animals link one event with another. A well-documented example involves the blue jay and the monarch butterfly. After ingesting a monarch, which contains toxic cardenolides derived from milkweed, a blue jay often vomits and subsequently avoids attacking monarchs or any butterfly with similar warning coloration. This learning depends on the bird associating coloration with negative digestive consequences. Associative learning appears into two major groups of forms. Classical conditioning occurs when an organism learns to connect to stimuli. Pavlov's dog salivating at the sound of a bell is the classic model, but similar processes occur in wild systems. For example, rodents associating rustle in grass with the presence of a snake. Operant conditioning links behavior to consequences. A honey badger learning to avoid certain beehives after painful stings is an example of an operant process. The punishment in this case is modifying its foraging behavior. Some learning is often time-sensitive, such as in imprinting, where young animals form strong attachments during a critical early period. Ducklings and goslings instinctively follow the first moving object they see, usually the mother, but famously they may follow humans or machines if exposed first. Other forms involve more subtle cognitive processing. For example, latent learning occurs when an animal acquires information without immediate reinforcement. A rat exploring a new environment develops a cognitive map that later guides efficient navigation. Other high-order learning forms could be insight learning, where sudden problem solving without trial and error, and case in point is the chimpanzee placed in a room having suspended bananas. It uses the sticks placed in the room to obtain the food. Imitation learning also appear in highly intelligent animals, such as primates. Young vervet monkeys in Amboseli National Park, Kenya, are seen to learn social behaviors by observing adults, and this is often seen in humans too. Summing it all up, innate and learned behaviors together form the behavioral expressions that animals rely on throughout their lives, but each contributes in a distinct way. Innate behaviors are first reliable and conserved over generations because they are genetically programmed. They are the most useful in situations where rapid, consistent responses are necessary, such as escaping predators, navigating environmental cues, building species-typical structures, or performing courtship rituals. Learned behaviors, by contrast, provide flexibility. They allow animals to adjust to changing conditions, recognize new threats, exploit novel resources, and fine-tune social interactions. While innate behaviors supply the foundational blueprint inherited through evolution, learned behaviors refine that blueprint through experience. Most animals rely on an integration of both instinct, giving structure, and learning, adding adaptability, creating behavioral strategies that are both evolutionarily stable and ecologically responsive.